Okay, welcome everyone. We have the vCA resolution process petitions, session 1 today. The second one will be held on Saturday, the 7th at 11 a.m. UTC for the first one and at 12:30 p.m. UTC for the second. So we have our first 4 here and the second 6 on Saturday. And I'm going to just share my screen here so that we can just have a little bit of sense of the process. Can everyone see that okay? Good. All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, great. So I put this doc together. I'll just dump this in the chat for everyone real fast. And this is just a little bit of a organizing of the process. This is the first time we've done this. And so it's a little bit of an exploration and a pilot as much as it is an opportunity for us to see if we can learn more and make some adjustments accordingly, potentially. So I just put the link to the vCA guide here. This has the resolution process outlined in the bottom. So that will give you a little bit of the what would have come before this time. So if you're new to this happening, then hopefully this explains enough that you can be up to speed. So the resolution process was put in place for Fund 8 newly. And this is in response to wanting to have a process by which people could contest outcomes after the vCA process related to the vCA algorithm that runs and compares vCA work following the Fund 8 QA conclusion. So I'll just read this here. The vCA review algorithm was put into place to deter abuse or misuse of the vCA process, meaning people who did random flaggings, middle of the road, didn't really do the effort, but put work through, not to nudge strict vCAs who are entitled to their opinion and which is naturally solved in an honest consensus. So the resolution process started here in Fund 8 to allow vCAs to challenge the review algorithm results and to raise concerns about issues with vCAs. Ideally, the vCA work more specifically. Ideally, each of these petitions will resolve issues and hearing of these will guide vCA process improvements for future funds. So that's our intention. So I just put the petition schedule here. I put those today in order of completion of petition. I do have maybe there's some wiggle room here if you want to make adjustments. I know, Tomi, this would be very late for you if this call goes late. So perhaps we have some flexibility to adjust and we can check that out. But right now I have them in order of the completion of the petition. And in order to be an accepted petition, the petitioner had to provide the petition and get 2 supporters who hopefully each of them are also here for their case. And upon that, we scheduled this petition. On Saturday, May 7th, there will be 2 more of these. And I neglected to put the Zoom links to those in here, but I will do that following this call today so that people who want to join can do that. Okay, questions on any of that? Everyone good? Put your hand up if you have a question.
Oh, sorry. How do you put your hand up like that? Sorry, Nadia. On the first session on Saturday, I think it should be 11 a.m., not 7 a.m.
I'm sorry, it's 11 a.m. my time.
Oh, thank God, I had my breakfast.
Yeah, but that would be very early for you.
Very kind, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that correction. Noticing having more of this. Appreciate that. So 11 a.m. UTC, and then what did I do here? No, that one's correct. 11 a.m. This should be 12:30 p.m. Thank you. 12:30 p.m. UTC, and I will correct all this and reinforce it with the dates. So this one is 11 a.m. UTC and 12:30 p.m. UTC, and 90 minutes later. Thank you for pointing that out. A little bit of completion up to the last minute of this document. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so here's the process for today. The document will be provided. So I have put this in the chat here. And then next thing we'll do is petition by petition. I'll invite the petitioner to present his or issue with the explanation and any supporting data. So you want to be as thorough as possible there, and these are great cases. There's an invitation to comment from the petition supporters. That would be the 2 people who supported the petitioner as to why they are supporting and to give feedback there. Then we'll have an invitation for the community response on the issue. And then we'll have a call for a vote and have the vote be tallied officially. So how we'll do that is just ask for a vote. We'll do our hands. I'll count the hands. And I will put just the count here in this document. Later on from the recording, I can do names if that's important. And then votes will be cast by raised hands and tallied. Okay, good. So a vote will be carried out.
Sorry. Is it digital hands or
Digital
flesh hands? Okay.
I think digital hands, unless there's a reason why we wouldn't do that. I think digital hands is probably the easiest, especially for some who are not sharing their screen.
Can you explain again how we do the digital hands? Because I can't remember how.
Yeah, totally. So I'll repeat this again when we get there. But in the actions at in your Zoom controls, there's one where you can raise a hand. Are you finding that?
Reactions.
Yeah, reactions.
Yeah, reactions, raise hand. Okay, got it.
Mark, go ahead.
I just wanted to raise hand, you know. Hi, Nadia.
Hi there. So that was an excellent demonstration of that process. Thank you. I was afraid you were going to like ping me on some major technical issue. I was kidding. Okay. Greater than 50. So here's how the votes greater than 50% in the negative will result in petition disagreement. That means if 10 people vote, let's use an odd number, if 9 people vote and 5 vote for, or 5 vote against and 4 vote for, then that's petition disagreement. And the opposite will be true. Less than or equal to 50% in the affirmative will result in petition agreement. Okay, does that make sense for everyone? And then we'll log that. And then if it is a tie, in the case of a tie, it goes in the positive on behalf of the petitioner. Okay. The what's next will be determined according to the vote outcome and what is feasible. So we probably won't get that determined today, but we'll take this then. Each of these cases is a little bit different. So we'll come away from that and determine the what's next according to this outcome. And then hoping that at the end, if we still have time and stamina, we might make a few points about any kind of feedback or suggestions. And this can also go further back into the Discord or the Telegram channel for ideas. But we can provide feedback on any CA or vCA guide updates that could be necessary, any community suggestions that might be necessary to add to the DWork board, and any tasks on the current suggestions that could be necessary. Okay. Just a quick thing that we'll try to keep it to 30 minutes, but really try to cut it off by 45 minutes per petition so that we can get everyone in there and have somewhat relative freshness for being able to talk about them. And a lot of this has been in the Discord channels beforehand and posted in Telegram. So hopefully we can be like succinct and direct. And then I just put in here, the discussion is a really valuable part of this process. So we want to balance allowing the conversation and also keeping it on track. Okay, outcome limitations, just as a reminder, this cannot change what is currently in the voting. Obviously, it's not going to change the work that has been put in, but ideally for the future, we try to figure out how we might take that into account a little bit better. So this will only affect rewards or things like status for the future. We have to think about this as we get done. And then just a last note on proactively improving the process. So another hope is that we use what we learn here today as an exercise to improve what we have in place for Fund 8, and to really think critically about whether or not the review process is one that is furthering us on the things that we want to accomplish. So I just put in here again, I always have this call for the voting on the community suggestions board. There are a good number of vCA process related issues in there. So it'd be fantastic if everyone on this call would pop over there and do that if you haven't done that yet, and just upvote for the things that are important. You can always join one of the working groups for solving these issues, or if you haven't yet, you can join the vCA discussion channel. We have a channel within the server that is made for these kind of things. So hopefully we get some great ideas as a result. Okay. Last pages are just overviews. Fund 8 petition overview. We had 7 filed, 6 got the 2 confirmations. And then from there, we're going to hear each of these today. If you provided a document for your petition, I put it in the link here. And those will be available for review as we continue on. Okay, so That is it. Any questions on any of that? All right, great. I might need, would someone be available to help make a double count for me for votes, so I'm not the only one counting the votes by raise of hand? Okay, Scott, great. That'll work. And then I'm probably going to have, trouble monitoring the chat. So if anything goes in the chat that should be part of the process, please let me know. All right, so Matthias, do you pronounce your name that way? Matthias, okay, good.
Yes.
We'll start with you first. I'll just open the floor for you to raise your issue and talk about it. And then from there, we'll have the supporters that are here for you, and then we'll have open community comments. It's 2:15, so we'll try to fit this by 2:45. Or for me it is. Whatever the quarter after and the quarter up for you is.
One more question about the voting.
Go ahead.
Can Matthias vote for himself?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Maybe better not. And have
Do you feel biased?
little bit.
I think it's, I was thinking about that for myself as well as the moderator. So I think perhaps we make the decision that the petitioner doesn't vote for him or herself. What is the collective feeling on that? Any feedback?
I think that's an honest decision.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Go ahead, Naveed.
Not opposed to that. One other question. You need to be a vCA to be able to vote. Is that correct?
Well,
In the current fund?
We don't have that as a stipulation specifically, but that is also a good question. So maybe we open it up for that conversation here. The reason being, yeah, that's going to be maybe difficult to determine. And also, this is the community sort of affecting and thinking about the process. So maybe we take a minute or two here to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't mind this time. I think it's fine if everyone votes, but going forward, that's a good question because it could open a door for me inviting like 50 of my friends from outside of Catalyst in this room only, and they would come and yay!
You have 50 friends?
No, 49 left. Killed one of them.
Well done, Naveed. Phil.
Yeah, I think like Tomi, I think given that it's the first trial run, those that are here can vote, but those that in the future, it is open to problems. So we'd have to work out another mechanism.
Yeah, thank you for that, everyone. We've already talked about a few things that will need to be clarified in the future. Again, this was just a pilot, so that hopefully we can make some of those notes today too. Lorenz?
I concur with you, the other petitioners, but I thought the petition supporters in the Discord were supposed to be vCA, so maybe indeed in the following petition process, we should start looking at vCAs only or CAs only, so we don't invite anyone outside of Catalyst.
Great, that's a good point. Yes, it was the case this time that the supporters needed to also be vCAs in this current fund. Okay, excellent, guys, very good. All right, so back to you, Matthias, if you want. So let's start here and see where we go, and I'll try to just let the process unfold and find the gaps and keep it forward moving. So please go ahead.
Okay.
Wait, real quick. One more question. Sorry, Matthias.
Go ahead, Scott.
So is it going to be yes vote, no vote, and that's it? There's no abstain? So people have to vote either way? Like, how do you, I just want to clarify on how.
We can offer an abstain.
gonna-
I think that's realistic. Abstain. Anyone opposed to offering abstain?
I think just
Yes.
failing to vote is an abstain. Not
Maybe take another emoji for abstination.
Well, when I call for yes votes, we'll do the hand, and then we call for no votes, we'll do the hand. And then that'll be it. If you don't want to vote, then you won't have put your hand up.
Oh yeah, that's a possibility.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just wanted to bring that up.
All right.
Then you can vote both.
All right, can no one just vote both, please? No. So you know what? I could do names here, so we could do that. Maybe if no one could just vote twice, that would be fantastic, because that would be that would cancel itself out anyway. Well, no, it wouldn't. Okay, so
Yeah, it will cancel. Yeah, we cancel. Don't worry.
all right. So Moon, go ahead, unmute yourself. Moon, your hands up. Do you want to say something?
Can you hear me now?
Yep. There you go.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry, wrong audio input. Can we just use the yes and no options rather than just raising the hand, rather than like to take out that possibility of rather voting twice, just yes or no?
That's great.
And
Do that.
abstaining being no comment or no emoji.
Where's the yes or no?
It is right below. It's in the same area where the reactions are.
Oh,
Yeah, just
yes.
above.
You know what?
And
That's
it's
a
the
great
mark.
idea.
It
So
stays there as well.
I'm gonna check it. Yeah.
Or thumbs up, thumbs down might be simple.
look at us. All right.
Oh man,
How
we
did
learned.
none of us knew this? This is the first time I've used this.
That's count an iteration, improving iteration.
Why,
That's
we
should
we
count.
should have done this like circle votes or something. It's like, why are we using the damn form? It's like bang, bang, bang. Damn.
You get the gold star for valuable contributions today. Thank you.
Thank
Does
you.
does everybody know how to use that?
Okay. Anyone? So when you, just as a clarification, and then next, okay, and then forever hold your peace, everyone. So Matthias actually can talk. We're gonna get it. So it would be down under reactions. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom link, you have a reactions little icon there that has a smiley face and a plus. You click that and you either put the green or the red. When we come to voting, if you can't figure this out, you'll just unmute yourself and say, help, I can't figure this out. And that's how we'll handle that part. Good? All right.
Just one last comment, just so you know, you have to unclick it to like take it off. So it's a toggle.
Excellent.
Nadia,
Yes.
just was, I'm not sure I'm using my Zoom software correctly, but I don't have this yes or no button in mine. So maybe I'm not using the web versions. Yeah, I have reactions and then only 6 emojis and no other options.
You see a check mark and an X.
No, nothing like that. But maybe I should be using the web version of Zoom. That would be better.
Why don't you take that to the chat and see if we can get you some help there so that we can let Matthias get started here. Here comes Mark. Go ahead, Mark, you can show it.
Yeah,
No, sorry. I thought I will be able to.
I will just vote in the chat then. Okay.
I thought I will be able to show where the emojis are, but when I tried to share my screen, I lost Zoom completely. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Maybe someone can do a screen grab of it and show it to him so that to Gaetan so that he can see what it looks like and troubleshoot himself. That would be fantastic if someone could pull that off. John.
Just it seems that we can do polls in Zoom. I don't know how it can be done, but apparently there's a support page for this, so maybe it will be the best option.
Okay.
I put the link in the chat, but I don't know how it works.
Okay.
Are you prepared for that?
If someone wants to figure that out and can pull that off, then in the next 30 minutes, then I really support that. And if that's too much for this time, then we'll go with the yes, no checks.
They need to be host. Oh, it's gonna be trouble.
Oh, you need to be host. Probably needs to be me then. Okay. Go ahead, Matthias. Start with that, and I'll see if I can figure that out. And if I can't, then we'll go with the checks. Just keep it simple. Okay.
Okay, so where was I? So I've made a total of 11 assessments, which had 5 good and 6 filtered out. I only made 11 this time, which is way less than usual because of not enough time at the moment. So my issue with this was when I went through the details of that. I noticed something. There was a high correlation with proposer flagging and being filtered out. But then when I went even deeper to look deeper into that, I also noticed that I had like excellent ratings on the same assessments. So that's kind of like strange to me. So I kind of like suspect that vCAs were influenced by the proposal flag in a way that is not supportive of critical thinking, because my assessments were critical towards the proposal. And this, if the proposal flags that, that's okay. I mean, a proposer has a right to flag, but I think it's the vCA's job to determine if the assessment provides value towards the voters and the proposer or not. And that should be a major criterion in filtering it out or not. So in this case, these assessments did contain information that were not prevalent in the other assessments, and it's now invisible towards the voter. So that's kind of like a missed opportunity in terms of quality work. Furthermore, yes, also what's really struck me was the length of proposal flagging. Now, there's also nothing wrong with that, but as we have seen with proposals themselves, bigger usually is better, right? So I think this might be a correlation with this proposal flagging then in this case. You see, so that's what I suspect that happened. I'm not looking to sanction anyone. I'm just looking if we can have another look at it, and if it's proven right, then that my vCA status is restored. And also that we can iterate towards next fund and potentially solve this problem if it really is the issue. I'd like everyone to read them, but then I need to share my CA ID. So I don't know if this is if I should do that. Should I?
No.
It's your ID. You're welcome to do what you'd like with it.
It is recording. It is recorded, so I don't.
Yeah, probably best not then. Okay, so I'll just answer the questions. Yeah.
Could you give some examples that would be helpful?
I can read one.
What does the group think about helping to help him evaluate this without disrupting his anonymity? What are some ideas?
Well, you can't redact that information off a document. Do a screenshot, redact that information off the document. That should be just put a black box over your CA ID.
I could do that. Yeah, should I?
Yeah.
If you read out any of your assessments, you're gonna reveal yourself.
Yeah.
What outcome are you looking for here?
Well, I kind of want. I've written this down here. Apparently, if you voice some criticism on a proposal, then vCAs are more inclined to give a negative review on you. Then that's the feeling I'm left with now. So why should I be critical next time? I'll just say, hey, this is wonderful, 555, and then I get the good rating. So this is like fundamental systemic problem then.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. At the same time, I'm a bit confused. Is this part of this process? Like, is this supposed to be for vCAs only, or is this, are you doing this as a vCA or are you doing this as a CA?
I'm doing this as a CA.
So Nadia, is this what we're supposed to be talking, or?
The recommendation when he raised this was that this would be a good test of this process, and that it has to do with the vCA process as well. And so from that perspective, there was like a good number of supportive things, and he was able to find 2 supporters. So I think in this case of evaluating it and thinking about it, it's a good use of the petition, although perhaps not like the very specific use of it, of the process.
But this will not have any effect on Matthias's results.
No, it won't.
No, it shouldn't.
But yeah, what you're saying makes sense. I agree.
Yeah, that happened to me as well, Matthias. As a vCA, as a CA, one of my assessments one of my assessments was flagged by the proposer, and then 5 of 7 vCAs all filtered it out with no meaning, with no reasoning behind it.
Well, there was reasoning provided sometimes. I've read those mentioning that, for instance, a challenge team isn't required in a feasibility section, which is true. It's not required because in the guide it says bonus if there's an established challenge team. Now, I did not deduct any rating for it, but I can mention it, right? So if I'm getting cracked down on those, and there were some that were really, really, really close, right? Then I wouldn't have lost my status.
Matthias, what status? I didn't understand that. What status did you lose?
I will no longer be a vCA in Fund 9.
And that was because your CA assessments were filtered out?
I got 6 filtered out, 5 rated good on a total of 11. Now, I do have an interesting metric. So on the 11 assessments, I got 150 total reviews, 25 of which rated it excellent, 66 rated it good, and 59 filtered it out. So that's an interesting metric there.
So to clarify here, your intention is not to have the results changed, which can't be done anyway, but your intention is to have us look at the process where someone from being filtered out without being able to contradict that filtering out would then lose their status to be able to be a vCA in the coming fund. Is that?
Not entirely. No. I just want, because this is I just want to sort of like lay bare the situation, and so that there can be a thought process for vCAs to be more critical in their reviews.
I think that there's a general issue where vCAs can mark good or excellent with no justification and filter out reviews that had justification, and so it's kind of like not balanced. And in your case, you were filtered out, and those that weren't filtered out didn't have a justification.
Yes.
Which then suggests don't bother to write a justification. This is mixing apples and oranges just a little bit, but that's suggesting don't waste your time to give a justification for filtered out. My personal opinion is that's the time you must give a justification if you're going to filter out somebody's assessment. But then the opposite side is that is people can mark good casually, never mind excellent.
Lorenz.
I think Matthias is more referring to the correlation with it, an assessment that's being flagged and the vCA work that they are automatically just filtering it out because there's a flag on the assessment, rather not reading the assessment and just reading the proposal flag and seeing from, oh, he might have a point. I don't know what the assessment is. I'm just gonna flag it out, filter it out, because I did some digging as well because I support Matthias's case, and you see a clear correlation between flagging from a proposer and then just the amount of vCAs that just filter it out, even though as Matthias has said as well, that the same assessment is getting an excellent rating. because when you read the assessment, it's clearly a good and provided assessment, and it gives clear rationale as to why they give the rating. And I think Matthias also wants this to be heard in a more common area, so we can change maybe the way the assessments are provided to the vCAs. I don't know if that's the option that Matthias is hoping for. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Andra.
My reaction was actually quite similar. From what I have heard from Matthias, I understood that he wants to establish that it is a problem. And I guess there is a lot of people who looked into it and they are feeling like it is a problem. So maybe it could be formalized, written down, and then it could be discussed, and some people could look into it and start working on figuring out some kind of process or methods we would apply in the future. But it's just about what he is asking for is about starting the process of working on this more than suggesting a solution.
Part of what I understand also, Matthias, is that you're uncomfortable that you are no longer a vCA. Is that something, Nadia, that can be adjudicated here? Is that if the votes go that they support his petition, that he's reinstated as a vCA?
So that's part of why I'm asking this question, because when we vote, we need to be specific on what we vote and then what it can affect. So that is without giving that a yes or no, I think that is a consideration, certainly, and a much stronger one. And then maybe we also are considering the solving for this particular, the voting on this particular issue, and then how to solve for it. So I don't think at this point I can confirm that without us looking further into it afterwards, but I think that that's the starting point that we can accomplish here. Is that helpful? Go ahead, Naveed.
Sorry, just say agree completely with Matthias' sentiment on his work. We saw this more dramatically in the previous fund, in Fund 7, where anything that was flagged by a proposer was very likely to be filtered out. Some people discriminately just went filter out everything. We saw there were 7 or 8 people. So it was a lot worse in Fund 7. People have learned a little bit in this fund. One of the recommendations we did try and put in place for Fund 8 was to make the vCA feedback field mandatory. And we went with just have a strong recommendation that it's completed. It's not ideal because it means vCAs have to do more work, but it actually makes them think. So what triggered you to put something as excellent? What triggered you to mark it as good? There must be some word out of that essay you've just read that triggered something in your brain to mark it as excellent or good or filtered out. I try to employ that myself in Fund 8. To get bored eventually, because but it does slow people down. It does make you think. It'll stop a lot of the indiscriminate tick box exercise that we're seeing still. Yeah.
Okay. Good, Zoe.
Yeah, I very much thought about the possibility that, or the necessity that VCAs could comment like as a proof that they read the stuff, and I just wanted to say that I don't know whether it should be just mandatory for filtered outs or also for other decisions. I think that this is a very good question and stuff, but right now I have to say I didn't quite fully understand the task at hand, or about the petitions and also the petition itself. Sorry about that.
are you looking for clarification on what Matthias was, why he brought this up, Zoe?
Yeah, and also what the framework really is. I think I didn't fully understand it. What are we voting on initiatives, and was this an initiative, or yeah, I didn't understand this context, to be honest.
Right. So this is important because in the future, if you don't solve this, then that would mean like people being excluded from potential rewards, work quality deteriorating, because some things get filtered out, filters don't see it. Even the voting phase, actually, the voting outcome changes by it. If this keeps happening at scale. So if that is the case, then the entire vote is not representative to our system.
In a broader response to you, Zoe, originally the resolution process was created so that we could have an opportunity for vCAs to challenge the results of the script that runs in order to identify people who are far outliers, which in Fund 7 meant that they had done some kind of bad action, right? So it was meant more to protect the system, but in this case, in that case, there also was no way to challenge that or to come back or even to contact those people or to have this conversation. So the creation of the space for this conversation and the ability to raise these issues and really work through them, both from a data perspective and a thought perspective, is what was accomplished here. If you have a minute, I might eyeball the resolution process explanation at the bottom of the vCA guide, and that will help you. And then I know that he's not next, but I want to just come to Marek quick because I see you've been going back and forth with Matthias, and you have some maybe. Are you wanting to say something about?
Yeah, if I can, just to try to clear things up. So you are saying with this 50%, but Lorenz, this is from.
Why don't you think about that for a minute? We'll come back to you.
Yeah, honestly, that document was so confusing that I didn't understand it the least bit.
Yeah, but the thing is that we are talking about CAs and we are reading the guide from the vCA.
Okay, so
Marek is fine, I think.
Yeah, if we are talking about the vCA, and Matthias is worried that he will lose the status of veteran community advisor, he won't, because in both formulas, the one I shared and the one the Lorenz shared, it states that in mine, you have to participate as a vCA in at least 3 funds since inception, and you participated in fund 5, 6, and 7, and 8, so 4, so you're good. In the second formula, there is a sentence that you have to be in the vCA list at least 3 funds ever, and you are in the 4. So don't worry, you are safe. You will be veteran community advisor. There is a big or.
Okay, well that's solved then, but I think what we're really talking about here is the process issue.
Yeah, that's the one that matters.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mark, for that, because that lets us handle that part of it, and that feels good. Vladimir.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nadia. Thank you. Well, I think there is something really important in this issue that Matthias raised, and even Len mentioned about this transparency. Maybe there's a case for, because of this issue that Naveed also mentioned, that proposer flags are usually overwhelmingly supported by vCAs, or there's a trend to do that, that there maybe is a case for making the proposer flag really those vCA feedback fields obligatory for whenever a vCA rules on the proposer flag. So that's an easy that's an easy fix. I'm not sure whether it will fix it, but it's an easy way to provide more information for this process because it doesn't overwhelm. Okay, that's point number one. And point number two is that we don't really have to decide between VCA feedback fields, yes or no. We can introduce a rate, or we can even introduce a rewards formula for VCAs who do fill it in. So eventually we can go, like we can say in Fund 9, we would like to see a 30% completion rate or a 50% completion rate, or because we don't want to go from nothing to overkill, but maybe we can think about along those lines also. Well, that's all. Thank you.
Great, Tomi. Thank you, Vladimir. So I'm going to start noting these suggestions underneath the petition itself on the doc. Go ahead, Tomi.
It's starting to be late, so slow. But yeah, I think it's in this fund specifically, I don't know, this is a guess. Maybe someone should analyze the data and see if it actually happened. But I think especially now when people are more afraid to deviate from the norm, they are more easily agreeing with the proposal flag. And I, for example, I'm pretty harsh on the proposal flags, so that actually ends up costing me if I'm in the minority. So there's a link to the vCA slashing model here also.
Len.
I was going to say, Matthias, you did total of 11, and 6 were somehow good or excellent, and 5 were.
No, 6 were filtered, and 5 were rated good.
Yeah, I think the answer is do more assessments that can be good, easy ones, so that if you're going to have if you're going to be critical ones, then do more that are not critical. I mean, finally, that's how people are going to game these systems. When the numbers are arbitrary, I don't like this 50% rule either. Especially when you have 7 total vCA reviews, 4 are good and 3 are filtered out. So the filtered out ones lose. Those numbers don't make sense. If you have 10 or 20, fine. But many that I saw, you're talking about 4 versus 5, either way, 3 versus 2. Wrong way to make those decisions. And people are going to figure it out.
Yes. So we do not have a system that is supportive of set criticism, even if it is founded.
I mean, Vlad's idea was good, that a good compromise in terms of not imposing too much burden on the vCA community, but where there's a proposer flag, for that, the vCAs must provide a rationale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Gaetan and then Philip, and I just also would like to say, so we just hit the little bit before the half hour, so perhaps we could think about it. Seems to me from listening to this that the great outcome of this would be that we have this as an issue that we think about specifically and solve for, and that can be a continuous thing that follows this session. So maybe we take the 2 more that are raised and maybe 1 more, and then if anyone else has something they really want to contribute, we can take that, and then we'll come to a consensus here, a vote. Okay.
Agreed.
Great.
My turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. Many things have been said already, so I'll be quick. Just wanted to raise some examples supporting the bias we stated about many vCA just filtering out without reasoning when proposer flag an assessment. I found several examples where the proposer actually made a mistake by flagging the assessment and flagged the assessment while providing a rationale stating, well, thank you for this assessment. It is actually very good. And I don't know what it was flagged by the proposer, but it was a mistake by the proposer. And these assessments received a majority of filtered out decision by vCAs. So just one example of this bias I found.
Philip, you had your hand up. Thank you. Philip, you had your hand up. I was talking while I was muted.
Yeah, but I think most of it is said. I don't want to drag it out, actually.
Okay, good. You earn a second comment for future round. Okay, so how would we, is this more of an acknowledgement of an issue that should be driven towards additional attention and focus and have that created in an official way where we work on it? Or how would you like to frame this vote? How would you like to frame the yes or no vote, having talked about through this here?
And can I ask Phil Kuhn to express his opinion, because he usually has pretty good analytical talents?
Go ahead.
I've been jumping around a bit this time, so I'm not following everything. So I'll stay out of it for now. Thanks, Len.
Should we let Matthias determine the direction of the vote, since it's outside of the norm for this coming together? And it's just a suggestion.
Perhaps because it doesn't directly affect you, Matthias, we could do, I mean, it does, it affects all of us, but in the sense that this is not specifically about your reward slashing or anything like that. Perhaps we could frame it as the problem that needs to be solved. And then as we vote on it, it could become an official working group problem. And then we would form us together here and solve for it. And come back for
I just see a question in the chat. Are Matthias' concerns valid? I think that would be like a good question to vote on. And then the concerns are written in the document. So that's a good point to start working from them if it's valid.
You're so succinct, John. Very good. Okay, Philip, do you want to say anything before I take that to a vote?
Well, you know, I think, yeah, are Matthias's concerns valid? It's a good question to start on. But I would, you know, we need to kind of ensure that someone who has been active for such a long time and who has been more than once recognized as an active member of the community and did the work honestly, I think we should make sure, if not now, then in the near future, that of course he is a vCA, we solve that, that's not a problem, but also that he is rewarded for his work. The document states that he was eligible for $1,147 in vCA rewards. Now, for some of us, that's maybe not a lot. For some of us, maybe that is a lot. I don't know Matthias' situation. It doesn't really matter. But it is money that he earned. And he, in my personal opinion, he deserves it. But not only for him, right? It's just that if we do this as an example that, you know, we can't fix it, then why would Matthias come back in the next fund? Why would any of us?
Philip, I think you're reading my petition.
Yeah, so
okay, so sorry if I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, so this is Matthias's case, so I'll just read it for the record here. He says, my case is exclusion of vCA activity next fund due to a limited amount of assessments, so it's CA related. The majority of these assessments have been focusing on proposals from the same entity, which has later stated that they were among the most articulate they have received. Yet they have been filtered out when objectively not as good assessment passed. Criticism is needed in out community, and when valid should not be viewed as negative thing. Therefore, the pretext will be vCA confirmation bias. So yeah, I think I think maybe Philip, you're thinking about Tommy's and not Matthias. So that's good. So problem averted. Are we, so Matthias, if you're in support of, I will raise the vote as are Matthias concerns valid, and then we will vote on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does that feel good?
And-
Any objections
and
to that?
If they are valid, what happens? If they are not valid, what happens?
If they are valid, then we will be based on this vote. What we've been doing is upvoting, and in order for something to become a prioritized problem, it requires a good consensus. So if it's voted yes, then we'll make it a working group problem, and this will be an official thing that needs to be solved and has a group around it. And if it's no, then we will ride off into the sunset. I don't know. It won't have that same level of focus.
Q is saying, wait. More people are coming. Well, more people have not heard this part, and anyways, let's just move on.
Can't wait on people that haven't heard the case.
They've been listening on the Twitter space, guys, so they have been listening.
Gotcha.
That's fine. Can they come and be present here, because that is required, and as we can't really judge that for here, then perhaps they can come in for the next case. That was like one of the requirements.
Yeah, they're joining. They should be popping in.
Okay, and how should we confirm that they've heard the space though, Q?
You know what? Let me back up and say they have not heard the entire story. So let's just say that their votes won't count to this point. They didn't know that there was a vote happening. And I've been trying to explain what's going on. So they've got some bias as well. So you all move forward with the vote by all means.
Well, I think this one is pretty well.
This almost feels like a practice round anyway.
Well, then I'm delegate. I'm the delegate. I'm the D rep for the Twitter, and I'm saying, I vote yes.
You're going to vote for the 60 people that are following.
Okay, here we go. Are we good?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so now we'll just take a vote. So the vote is, are these concerns valid? And if they're voted yes, which you can do by coming into your reactions down there and voting it up, then we'll go. And if you're going to vote no, you can do that now at the same time as well. Yeah, Ellen, that would be good. So you have the right to vote, Ellen, if you've been here for the entirety of the session that's been talked about here. Do we know if reactions show on the recording? I don't know that, but I'm going to screenshot them here once everyone has voted Danny. So I have it as a record.
And aren't you all VCA or CAs or VCAs? So you have assessor numbers. I don't quite know the big concern. Never mind. I'm interrupting with an election or a vote.
Okay, so I don't see any no's. If you're intending to vote no, then we need to do that also now. So I'm going to give 30 more seconds for everyone to get their votes up here. Maybe less than that. Okay, so.
I'll just make the point that some of the people appear on both windows, so it's kind of tricky to count it.
Totally. Because I don't have, that's why I'm going to have Zoe double count me, or not Zoe, Scott. And what I'm going to do here is screenshot it. So in the future, I don't double count anyone. So we have accurate records. And then the poll I will use in the future, because that would be good. Scott's going to help me. Okay, Scott says 23 yes right now. Good. All right, so 5 seconds. I'm going to screenshot here, and that'll be the official, and then off we will go. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, screenshot 1. Screenshot 2. Okay. There were no no's in that one, and since there were no.
Did she say Coco? No.
Coco.
Oh shoot! She said Coco. No. Oh, my microphone's on.
It is. I did say that. So there are no no's. knows. So,
She said no knows.
So the 23, Scott, is that still good? Vladimir, okay.
I don't know. People are joining and leaving.
Okay. So based on what I screenshotted there at that exact time, we will do that. But since there weren't any no's, I think we can affirm here and move on to the next one. Is that good for everyone? All right, great. Okay, nice job. Nice job, everyone. So you can take your yeses down. That'd be awesome. And I'm going to see if I can pull up Lorenz here. Okay, Lorenz, you're next. And so Tomi, do you want to make a case for going earlier for yourself since you're late there?
I was just about to ask Tomi if he was willing to go first because I know it's getting late for him.
I'm about to fall asleep.
That'd
Yeah.
be very wonderful if he could do that. So,
go ahead, Tomi.
Okay, I'll be brief. Okay, I'll post that once more in the chat, and this time, Philip, this is my petition, not Matthias's. So let's take that reaction out. Okay. Is Rodolfo back? He said he will drop off and join again. Yes. And Dan is still having a sign on. Okay. Anyway, I'll try to gather myself. Facts. This was a new process that was introduced to weed out irrational and dishonest behavior. I agree, I'm sometimes a bit irrational person and funny person, but those who know me, which is actually quite many of you, you know that I've been around since February last year, and I've been always doing things that make sense for the community, and I always put the community's benefit ahead of my own. This was the first time that I got really angry at the process. I almost felt like I'm being rug pulled by IOG because we have slipped a few people, and we have been paying rewards for some dishonest actors, and that's a little bit annoying. But what's even more annoying is that when you're trying to do everything by the book and when you're trying to do what's best for the community, then your rewards get slashed. So what actually happened is that I disagreed with the average, and for many reasons. I think I'll let Navid speak about those reasons more because he has looked into the data. But the fact is that I was 1.94% away from that arbitrary limit of 80. And because of this 1.94%, I stand to lose $1,147 worth of ADA. And for me, it's not about the money, it's about principle. And if we let this happen, I'm out. Navid and Rodolfo, I picked you here. I'm not your best friend, so I didn't pick you because I'm your best friend. I hardly know you guys, but I know that you have some perspective. So Rodolfo did very few reviews compared to me, but he's getting actually more rewards than others. So maybe you have some perspective why that happens. And then Navid, you have looked into the data a lot and you got maybe 5% better average than I did, and you get pretty much what I was supposed to get. So I'm asking you guys to share your perspective. I'm not asking you to defend me or anything, just share your perspective and let's see where this goes. I'll trust the process.
Rodolfo, you want to go first, or should I? No, I've
Go
stopped you.
you first.
I just
Fine.
jumped into the car.
No problem. So, so I've been a VCA for some time. For the last 2 or 3 funds, one of my focuses has been this annoying piece about people gaming the system. So since Fund 6, one person was caught out. Fund 7, one person was caught out but got away with $5,000 or $6,000. Another 9 or 10 people also got away with lots of money. And therefore, this process finally came in around an MVP for this reputation process. What we're always going to see are edge cases and people on the borderline. And I think, as in terms of where we're at in the process, this kind of challenge from Tomi is valid, because there's always going to be people on the edge, people who are a couple of percent over, and they get a higher reward like I did. So myself and Tomi did pretty much the same rewards. I got lucky. I got into 91% or whatever it was, and Tomi was 80 below the threshold, so he got $1,000 less than me, or will get, unless we change it via this vote. So I think the process we've got is fine, but I think in terms of where we are as an MVP, in terms of the MVP, and the reason I'm supporting Tomi's case is what I'd like to see is us take a vote on somebody who's been active in the community and does the best for the community, and just to realize that we're not in that position to necessarily have to apply hard and fast rules. So if you're 1% here and there, you can make a case for yourself and it can be overturned. I'm not going to make the case the other way where I should be downgraded, but in Tomi's case, I fully support somebody who is always active in the community, always trying to help other people. And for whatever reason, and I can go into some of the details of some of the, if we start to actually go into the detail of some of the assessments that Tomi marked as filtered out and other members of the community marked as good or excellent, you would see that Tomi is correct, okay, in my opinion. And him going against the consensus actually means there's a systemic problem with the VCA, with the VCA process. So, and you find that on many of the experienced VCAs, where people have actually taken a serious look at the assessment and have made a critical review of it. Whereas we're still in that position, and we're still building that VCA knowledge base to be able to critically review assessments that are of a good standard. So as a collective, we're not there yet. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but I'll leave Rudolph to comment further.
Okay, so on the car by park, so I'm safe. So I have the same view. I did have better with less data.
Do you have the video off?
Okay. Oh, hold on, maybe. Hold on. I'm gonna try to reach better signal.
Maybe just turn the video.
Yeah, turn the video
off.
off.
I'm gonna turn off the video. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Now, how you hear?
Better.
Good. Okay, so what I did this round is playing like a data scientist, and I try to look for those people on the edge, those VCAs on those CAs assessment on the edge. So mostly all my reviews was clear that they are excellent, good, or filter out like the majority. But this was like playing with Python, some programming techniques. But Tomi did a better job because he looks indeed into all the details of all those assessments and he found some of those that I tag as I think I tag as a good, and they really understood that they are filtered out. So he did a better show. So I'm ashamed of that. And besides that, I really I think my view how we can that be resolved is of the way we compute that reputation or those rewards, because this is the first time and we put a hard limit. So you have to be this like you have to match with the majority, like a majority of good and excellent. And this is really hard for me the first time we implement that. So we should be more loose on that. I may be doing that. Tomi and many others wouldn't have reached on that 80 like this slash status. I think that's a way to resolve that if we change the way we're gonna reward vCAs. But besides that, of course, I agree with Navid of the Tomi reputation, and that's a good case to think about. So that's my point. I think we can fix that by the reputation system. How because every time we implement something, we should start slow. I don't think we should start with a hard limit on top, like the same with Matthias case. We shouldn't start so high with a 50% or something like that.
John.
So that's my case. So is that clear?
Thank you, bro. John, you're next.
So my really more of a question than an argument on this case particularly. When we're doing these percentages, are they just counting your variation from the average number of good, excellent, and filtered outs? And if so, how is that accounting for we're not all doing the same exact numbers? For example, I did like 120 and was in the 94th percentile. But if you do 1,000, you're doing many more than I'm not, and maybe you, by luck of the draw or intent or any number of factors, get more filtered out than I did, or more legitimately should have been filtered out than I did. And how does that skew these numbers that we're looking at? And are we correcting for that?
Just to be an example, if I'm a vCA and go and find all the low word count assessment, only those, maybe thousands, and I filter out all of them. So I'm gonna have probably like close to 100% accurate on this reward system. And this is really gonna be a simple task you can do in minutes. And probably Tomi takes weeks, and he gonna have less rewards.
Maybe I think your question is specific to how was it specific to how the formula works also? Was that part of the question?
Yeah, basically I'm wondering specifically how the formula is getting these percentages, and if it's accounting for the fact that we're not all doing the exact same reviews and therefore might have different ratios of good accepted or good filtered out and excellent.
Yeah, so maybe I'll cue and then give you some time to prepare to say it. Maybe Mark or Danny, could you guys talk to that, since IOG is the one that ran it? And then maybe John, we can come back once they're in position to, I'm not sure if they're right there.
That's fine for me.
Cool. Then we'll
I do think that this is critical to what we're doing right now, though.
Spot on. Yep. Okay, so we'll come back to you, John. Moon, go ahead.
I don't think that ultimately, I think people gaming the system to try and get a better outcome disproportionately is going to be something that's going to be inherently part of human nature. Just the fact that you're trying to like be involved in the Catalyst project, you're going to try and maximize the results or your rewards for yourself and game the rules in its own way. And that in itself is kind of sketchy, but kind of like, in a sense, like the tax system. Like, most often the amount of taxes that you pay is more of a result of a function of how you did your taxes rather than what you did during the year and what you were able to actually find. One thing I like about crypto, or at least the blockchain as a whole, it aligns motives by giving an incentive to like the people that are trying to game the system, like taking greed and making that part of the fundamental consensus algorithm, people using the tokens to do stuff. I feel like trying to punish people for gaming the system will ultimately fail because there's always going to be more rules to read through. I think a better approach would trying to like set up a system where you encourage the gaming that also helps align the motives of the overall Catalyst project. Does that make sense? I feel like we're going down a path that we're trying to like witch hunt people that are gaming the system, but I think gaming the system is part of the mechanism that'll help this Catalyst grow. Is that, am I way off there? Okay, well, it's mostly a comment, I guess.
Yeah, you got some thumbs up and some other responses there. If anyone wants to comment on that specifically, or
I guess if it's probably a discussion for later how we'd actually explore that, but yeah, we're here to experiment, right? So if we can come together and come up with a solution that can actually fulfill that and document it and create the system that helps form something like that, then let's do that. That sounds good.
I think it's also, I'm sorry, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's an iterative process. We're all here. So this is the iteration of last fund. That was the iteration of last fund. The vCA thing came because we had issues with CAs trying to do this and that. So we're all learning, we're all doing this process here. So yeah, it needs some creativity to actually sit down and work on the system that will actually be in place. So if you want to take that on, Moon, I'd be interested to discuss and talk, and I'm sure other people would as well. So if you've got an idea of how to execute, or at least some seed of it, it would be good to explore.
I'll try as best I can.
This is really an important part of this comment too, especially for those who are maybe newer or came in Fund 8, is that this is an environment where we are needing to fix things together, and also like you can get started fixing something and making suggestions. There's no like someone who is, it's a continuous process of doing this, and sometimes we need to make dramatic changes. So last time we had dramatic stuff, we need to make dramatic changes. Here it comes again. And it needs a broader perspective than just the look at the vCAs, certainly, but there's obviously things that need to be solved here. And that's the purpose of this exercise here, is that not only we set things right, but we reshape this and reshape it as dramatically as it needs to be, so that we can make it much improved without sacrificing the things that are established good. Matthias.
Yes, I'd just like to mention that I think it's a bit of a weird rule that you need to correlate with the majority, because this sort of intensifies or it strengthens this type of behavior among vCAs then. So it's not necessarily something bad if you disagree with the mean, if you deviate from that. I mean, you could be right.
Matthias, this is the experimentation of the prediction markets, and there's research in that space. So I think, look, it's all an experiment. So I think this is IOG's experiment into that, and some other people were working on various things on how that might work. So it might not be the case that this is necessary for this part of the ecosystem. So we'll discover that as time goes on, I think.
Well, certainly, yeah. That's it for me. Lorenz?
Okay, yeah, Lorenz.
I was here for the question of John from the percentage. So the percentage compares your reviews towards, well, the reviews you did compares it to the overall ratings from all the vCAs. So for example, if you did 100 reviews and you did 100 good reviews, but the overall rating from those assessments were only 80 were rated good and 20 were rated filtered out, then you would have a rating of 80%, because 80% of your reviews compared to the overall were the same. So that's the percentage.
So it's not comparing my total average to somebody else's. It's comparing my review rating on that review to other people's rating on that review.
Yeah.
In that case, then in that case, we need to be pointing out where people are deviating and discussing those specific deviations, not general nebulous percentages, but that specific deviation and whether or not it was merited. I mean, that's not about your algorithm and stuff. That's about this process entirely. If we're going to be reviewing things and then having this kind of meeting about reviews and then discussing things other than the deviation, we're not moving anywhere. And that's all I have to say about that right now. So I do want to say thank you for that information. That was useful for me to know.
Yeah,
No
and
problem.
so the script when it runs shows where people are way off, and the reason for that is that we had many people who were way off, and we didn't have a way to look at them or evaluate how that was. That's not to say that this is the better way to do it, or that there's not a better way than this to do it. It's just to say that that was the response to that having happened in Fund 7 and having had people who were just sort of flippantly completing the reviews without having a good amount of thought.
Oh, and I agree there that this then becomes a necessary part of the process just to prevent people from just blanket labeling stuff for maximum profit. But if we're going to then review people who were slightly off of the average, we need to be looking at where they're different, not percentages and nebulous concepts. We need to be looking at the reviews. And that's what I'm saying about this whole process is still, and maybe it's too early to really go deep, but we really need to be focusing less on what the thresholds are for who gets to be paid and who gets slashed pay and who doesn't get paid. But we need to be looking at the reviews where they differed and discussing whether or not their variation was merited or not.
I agree. I think everyone here, most people here would probably agree with that. And in Tommy's case here, we were able to look at some of those, and that's a little bit of, it does take a lot of time and effort though. So it's perhaps part of what needs to be really considered is our ability to really do that in a deep dive and consider it. So that is my affirming and agreeing with you. And I think we have a good ways to go there till we
I would just add in there that any petitions in the future, obviously, should include arguments from reviews that they've made that differed and make their claim or make their argument that they were in the right or at least valid, not gaming the system. It's really all that we should be consulting here.
Sure, good. Okay, Len, go ahead.
Okay, there's been a lot of discussion, so I think I've forgotten some of the points, but one of the points that was made was edge cases. Another point was made that since this was a first time change or rule, that perhaps the percentage should have been more generous. If 50%, I don't know what number, but maybe we should recognize that we introduce a new concept, offer more leeway. And then the other issue is that there is edge cases, or that there's a way to adjudicate an edge case. And in Tommy's, you heard him say, if this holds, he's out. because it's $1,000 that he's unfairly or he feels unfairly penalized. And we all value Tomi's participation in the community. So, I mean, I think that every time we put a new rule or system in, the first time we have to recognize that it's probably going to break. Second, that if you're talking about percentages, I mean, who's to say that 80 is right and 75 is not right? So I think we have to be generous in the construct of the rules. And then Nadia, you kind of spoke like that you were part of the process of creating this rule. Is that correct?
That I was part of creating the filter.
This 80% rule.
This is an IOG.
Okay, so then the question is, my feeling is that when we iterate, and we find every time we iterate, I think I'm kind of well known for using the example of whack-a-mole. Every time we iterate, we find different ways to game or different problems. Was there enough discussion? And Danny, maybe if you're still on, was there really enough discussion about all of these possible pitfalls of this new rule? And if so, did somebody say, "Ooh, well, 80%, that's a good number, but we're going to try it the first time. What happens to edge cases?" Did anybody discuss edge cases like this? Because nobody can say 80 or 82 or 78 or 60 is the correct number. Danny, if you're still here, did you take part in the discussions from IOG? Or Harris? I don't know if I can't see if Harris is here.
Partially, and in a way, if you remember the document, there was like initial stab at it, which was publicized and circulated throughout the hallways, and it was open for comments like for such a long time, a couple of weeks probably, before we actually implemented. And one of those discussions came in from the comments. I think it was also based on Navid's analysis as a helper tool, where I think there was a analysis made for Fund 7, what the vCA deviation was like. And I don't know if if that was Navid's document or somebody else's, and we used that as like an actual data point reference to model what the threshold could be for Fund 8 based on the Fund 7 output. It just so happened that the results were a little bit different in some of these edge case scenarios. So we probably just need to do a better job collaborating and thinking about these different edge cases. And like that's the goal of this process as well as any other currently in place.
Well, perhaps then a lesson learned is don't rely on Google documents. Turn more towards this kind of a discussion where a lot of people can express views. I don't know how many comments there were on that document, but certainly there's, I don't know, 30, 40 people here. If this were the discussion about formulating that policy, I think we might have a more robust idea that comes out of it. Because, yeah, at any rate, yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think there's nothing that in that statement that that somebody wouldn't want on this call. It really comes down to the active participation in that sense. And we've been having those discussions, Nadia's doing a fantastic job activating the CAs and also vCAs alongside, and the help that everyone is giving her. And I think that's the process that we need to be piloting, that, we're trying to give more room for the community to start shaping some of these rules, but it really needs to come in with a deeper thought, as you said. When we do publish the documents, it is a source of the truth at that point in time that we need to work with, and we can definitely incorporate some options in there that then can be molded in, but we do need that input. If there is something that we're saying on the ground in real life, it just needs to be input. It's not enough just to have those conversations on Telegram. It's not enough to have them in different parts of the ecosystem, but pooling it together so that we can prioritize and look at these things and edge cases in the different places. And that's exactly what's happening here right now. So, I think that serves as a good lessons learned as well.
as we're trying to release some of that information and allow for that molding. But like I said, there needs to be really active participation, and essentially this is what's happening right here, right now.
I think the active participation comes from this kind of after town hall, as opposed to documents, because there's so many documents floating around on so many subjects. And okay, you add a comment on this or you add a comment on the other thing. This kind of forum here allows people to listen to other people's ideas, differ, modify, improve. So I would say this kind of a forum is the way that new rules be formulated, not just a document that's circulated, because there's so many documents circulating.
I 100% agree. I'm just going to focus us back on the fact that when we publish, we're as a company, as an IO, as a player in the ecosystem, is publishing a ton of documents, and we need help looking at these things from the community's perspective. So for us, it's an entry point that then I can take that document and translate to the internal teams that are working with it. So for me, that's sort of a medium which is transferable, and it works in a way that I can incorporate those comments there based on the input, which we've come to learn a little bit about the Google Docs. But that's not to say that that's where the in-depth conversations, that should be used as a reference document based on which in rooms like these, we can have a more coherent conversation out of which we can prioritize and put another output that can be fed back into the team. So I just need to be practical in terms of like how that cycle works. And I think we're navigating it better fund by fund. And again, I'm just going to point out to exactly the blueprint of what's happening here. That seems to be working. And I think we can improve on that. And, the document is just a place where that information is first published. And, whether it's a Google Doc or if it will be GitHub or something else, it's all about actually looking and going through it and understanding it and having a discussion and discourse on it so we can ultimately make it better.
I'll just clarify two things on the heels of that, which is that there were a good number of vCA discussions on this, and they happened relatively early in the prior, meaning not right up before, and this was all part of it. So it was a lot of like trying to solve. And perhaps now we have things in place like the server, and we have the ability to raise issues on the board and things like this that are maybe put us in a better state to share communication. Hopefully that improves a lot, and maybe it would be helpful for like me or whoever's in the rep role to be really very proactive about follow up sharing these docs and asking for feedback, because the people who are in this room are the people who could make this different, and that thinking is what's really required, and the doing of it as well. So this is like a little bit of a call to action. We're at 45 minutes for this, so Ellen, I want to give you a chance, and then Vlad, and then I think we can vote before Tomi disappears completely into the darkness over there in his space. Okay, Ellen, and then Vlad, and then we'll.
Hi, thank you for opening the space. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just I would like to give you a perspective, a quick perspective from someone that, I'm just starting to see what's going on with Cardano. So I'd like to kind of congrat all of you, because from all the blockchains, because I'm an artist and researcher, and I've been looking through all different blockchains because of NFTs and et cetera. So this is the most intellectual community that I find, and I don't see any, so I see the process is evolving, and I think Cardano is going to lead to give a legacy to the blockchain for governance. So I'd like to give you this perspective, because decentralization, it's not an easy process, and it's a change in the mindset, and many people are just replicating the idea and saying, as a trendy thing, Web3 and decentralizations and DAOs and etc. But people have difficulty to practice it. So I think Cardano is practicing it, and it's not easy, and it's evolving. So I just like to congratulate you all and to acknowledge, it's on the way thing. So it's a shame that some people are taking advantage and using like this great thing, but it's all part of the process to, so this is just what I like to comment to say it's a very good process that's happening here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Vlad?
Hi, thanks. Well, I'll keep it brief. I was just thinking about this case. I think this case is important with this hard threshold that is demotivating for somebody who's active a long time, and because the percentage is the limit that changes the outcome for the person who we really want to keep. Any committed person we want to keep on board. So I was thinking about maybe the agreement rate should be the multiplier, where we don't have these, because we're going to be in this situation again and again, where there's going to be a lot of edge cases where 1%, 2% will mean 1,000 or 2,000. So I think we took it a step too far. Maybe it should be a gradual scale where we don't have these mistakes that cost somebody $1,000 or $2,000. That's it.
Okay, so fantastic. Everyone, thank you for your comments. I'll just point out to I think that the discussion is part of the hearing of the petition, because it's as much about coming to terms on whether or not these are viable, and also figuring out why they happened. So those two things are a little bit hand in hand. I'll point out that there is a link to Tomi's petition and also a link to the analysis done of it that is in this document here under his section. So that's viewable again if you want to come into a deep dive for it. And then maybe what we come to here is a vote on his petition. Does the group feel like we're good to go there? So your petition, Tomi, is, go ahead, Len.
Can we do the same thing we did to Matthias? Is Tomi phrase the question that we're voting on? And let us agree to the question?
Go ahead, Tomi.
I just noticed something in the chat. What I'm asking is the rewards 1x, not any additional rewards.
Okay. So, and again, I think as we think about that, the filter is meant to find people who are not using the system or who are not doing the work. It's not meant to take out people's good work. So I think that is the argument from him here, and that he has provided that document and it's been analyzed. So that's what we're talking about here. Go ahead, John.
So the big point that I've been getting at here is that we've been talking about this process, but we haven't actually talked at all about whether or not his work was good. And I know he's got a reputation with the rest of the community, but I haven't seen his work, and we're here to hear a petition about this and then vote on the result. And we haven't talked about the work. And that's the point that I've been making all along, is we really need to be focusing on the individual case and the arguments for and against approving his petition or not. And we haven't even touched on that. It's been almost an hour. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Go ahead, Tomi.
Yeah, I think this has dragged on a bit too long. But if I remember correctly, Navid started with those in his opening, and he said that there were some real evidence. By the way, this has all been shared in the Discord beforehand, and it's pretty good to be part of the Discord. I wasn't part of the Discord a moment ago, but now I've left Telegram and I'm Discord fan. Anyway, so there were some honest mistakes where I was cross-eyed and my brain was saying excellent, and I clicked filtered out, and that thing happens when you're super tired. But there were many cases where I looked really deep into these things and I found some things that don't make sense. So in those cases, I disagreed with the majority without knowing that I will disagree with the majority. And then, of course, there were these cases where the proposal flag is easily agreed to by many vCAs, and I sometimes don't agree with the proposal flag, and those might have been the case. But it's actually Navid who has looked into the data much deeper than I have. So if you want to go into the details, we can spend another hour. But my point here was to look at this process more generally. But yeah, I'm all for it if we want to go to details.
So I just put into the chat the analysis of his work, which is done by other vCAs based on what he raised as a petition. Yeah, so go ahead, Zoe.
For me, I agree we could maybe talk some more hours about the details, but for me it's very clear that if you have this discrepancy that Tomi stated with two other people, I'm sorry, Navid and Rodolfo, I think that those gaps are so big in terms of reward differences and so small in terms of the actual numbers, that for me it's reason enough to look at it more detailed, and how it's really, because it's obvious that you have categories that are not making proportional stuff. It's just categories, and yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a very, very, very legitimate point.
Okay, so what I'm wanting to do in facilitating this is move us to a point where we can come to a consensus on voting here and vote for Tomi's case. So yeah, and I'm also in agreement with this. So maybe we can learn from this particular one and address that in the next two, and they will go more smoothly. I also am aware that there's a lot of comments and clearing of the air that have wanted to happen through this process as well. So that the logging of that is really valuable. So let's take all that into account and work on Gaetan's, which is next. And first come to Tomi. So your intention is to have, can you frame your vote question? It's simply about the reward slashing and not. So we voted yes, we would support your petition to not have your reward slashed based on being a small discrepancy and also having legitimately done that work and have it been evaluated by others, by your vCA peers. And if we vote no in response to you, then it would have been, then you would stay as you are. Is that fair to you?
Sounds about right.
Okay. So let's bring this to a vote here. If you are in support of, if you vote yes, it means that you support Tomi's case to reverse and not be excluded from getting his rewards. If you vote no, then it means you're opposed to Tomi's case being reversed and having his rewards slashed. Okay. So I'm going to give us 30 seconds here, and then I'm going to take the tallies. Thank you, Scott, for helping me double count. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, please keep them up. Okay. All right, good. So we'll tally those. Looks like you have, I didn't see any no's this time. Okay, so we'll take that forward. Vote concluded. Okay. Any, I think that's good. You can take your yeses down. And out of request by Gaetan's and the graciousness by Lorenz, we're going to go to you first because you have to go to work. So let's do that. And let's see if we can do this in like 20 minutes. So it's quarter of, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can come to vote sooner. I think a lot of these cases are similar and we've had a good amount of time to talk about them. Pressing and quick, Zoe?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask if it would be cool to have a 5 minutes break or something. I don't know, just throwing it in.
Why don't we consider that maybe after this next one, because he has to go to work and he has a timeline and I don't want him to miss that.
Okay, sure, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Nadia. And I think we can be, most of what we've said so far really apply to my case as well. So we should be able to make it in 20 minutes. So I decided to enter into the petition process when I saw that I missed the bonus rewards threshold by less than 2%. So it's about the same case as Tomi's, but not speaking of the same threshold. And that was my initial motivation. When so I looked into my work, thanks to Navid's file. I tried to understand where I was in deviation with the majority and what happened. And what I found is that in many cases I was able to prove that I did an actual work with respect to the vCA guidelines using the rationale, the feedbacks that I gave to the CA, and also in many cases I also found that my decision was obviously there's no perfect decision, but in some cases it was obvious that the good decision was the one I made and not the one the majority made. And the example I gave earlier is it's not most of the cases, but it's a good example where the proposer stated that he was thankful. He thanks the CA for a good feedback, and he makes a mistake and he flags the assessment. And most of the vCA says, okay, filter out without feedback, and it's obvious that he should not have been filtered out even if this assessment was flagged. So if I go deeper in the analysis, so in my I will put the link also in the chat, but in my petition I provided all the about 50 assessments where I think the feedback I gave explains why and how I made my decision as a vCA. Can give some examples, or maybe it was not what most vCA think, but for example, in many cases, there was a statement by a rationale by the CA with no negative comments, no criticism, no negative feedback at all, and a 4-star score. For me, it's not compliant with the guidelines. If you do not give the perfect scores, the 5-star scores, you have to explain at least a little bit why. And in most of these cases, it was also a low quality assessment. And so for many of these cases, when I found no reasoning behind why no 5-star scores, or also some reasoning not in accordance with the score, I mean, well, this is perfect, nothing to say, okay, and 3-star or 4-star, don't know, no explanation. well, this is an example of the feedback I gave to the CA. Some cases I stated that I found signs of automated assessment writing, and stated where I found this. Okay, so I don't know if I have much to say, much more to say. Basically, my petition is, I can phrase it like that. I think I can show proof using these feedbacks that I followed the vCA guidelines in these 52 or 55, I don't remember, assessments where I was not in accordance with the majority. And for this reason, I asked if we can say these decision I made are valid and included in my overall deviation ratio. Well, that's it.
Great. You have two before I had, or Len, you are a supporter, yeah, of this petition. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. My experience is similar, that that there were many assessments that people rated good, in which if you looked more deeply into them, deserved to be filtered out. Issues like there were mistakes or whatever, and maybe people didn't spend the time to look carefully at the assessment and the proposal. But many that I filtered out were because I looked deeply and I found there were conflicts or things that just didn't make sense in the assessment. And so in general, I go back to the point that rating an assessment as good or excellent, let's say not excellent, rating, it's easy to rate it as good. And I would propose we stop with good and just make acceptable. Good is a determination of quality. Acceptable, I think, doesn't put that's another issue. So for me, I agree that that looking deeply into an assessment can unearth problems that casual view didn't reveal.
Okay. Good, thanks, Lynn. Spencer, go ahead.
Yep, so I was one of the other supporters of this petition. And so I personally went through about half of the listed reviews that Gaetan put in his petition. And I would say that I agreed with the majority of his petition in that there were some quality control issues that were let through. Maybe some of the reviews were rated as good or excellent when he put filtered out, and his rationale, I kind of agreed with most of that. So I just thought I'd give my perspective. People are welcome to go and give their own conclusions, but I think that for the most part, the majority of his proposal was valid, or his petition was valid, sorry.
Naveed, go ahead.
So I just wouldn't get it. Is it possible that we could go through just to get everybody on the same page? Because I guess not everybody's had a chance to read through your documents in detail. Just to go through one or two
yes
of your, I don't know if you're able to share screen and just go through one or two of the assessments and where you've marked something as filtered out and how come the rest of them all came up with excellent. Or something that you think are real outliers, because it might be useful just so we get down to that specific, which is I think a lesson learned from Tomi's general discussion.
Yes, thank you, Nadia.
Also, if you pull up my document, I copy and pasted the original rationales from the original reviews from the CAs, so you can cross-reference that.
So Navi, are you asking me to share my screen? The petition was on display right before.
Yes, please, if you could.
Yeah, still looking for the button on share screen. But you had it on screen, Nadia. Maybe you can put it back, please. Oh no, share screen. I have it. Desktop. Okay, I have to
maybe
quit.
choose one that you like.
Yeah. So I choose one I like and then explain. But let's take the first one. The first one. So consensus was excellent, and I choose filtered out. So it's a quite opposite decision. And my feedback was that feasibility score was 5, and it was basically not matching the CA rationale. It says if my doubt were resolved, I would certainly have given an excellent score for the feasibility on this proposal. So this is an obvious case where it may be just a mistake by the CA, but at the end for the voters, they see a 5-star score, but this score is not correct with what the CA think about the proposal. So my understanding is that voters should not see this score. Well, second one.
Could you go back to the Gaetan petition analysis document, and then just people can read that feasibility. There we go.
Okay.
So they gave it a 5, but in the content, it is contradicting that. Is that was your point? And that's why you filtered it out.
Yes. Maybe CA would have wanted to rate it 4 or 3, I don't know, but certainly not 5.
Okay. Do you want to look at any others of them here?
Yes. If you can show the list again. Another one at the bottom where I have the opposite case. Just scroll down. I pick one. I haven't checked all of them in details, but yeah, maybe those one which may be less obvious. The good filtered out where several cases I stated low standard generic assessments for quality rational. Do you want me to pick one, or some of you can just pick one and we can look into one of those as we scroll down?
You pick one that you're
I pick one?
Yeah.
No, I felt confident particularly in one. Just take the first one here, the low standard not helping voters. Yeah, I think it's a similar case to the first one. Only positive feedback in feasibility.
Okay, that one's not on here.
Okay.
I didn't get to all of them, so it's from the first half. I got through the first half.
That's good.
Of your petition.
So you found, Spencer, that you sort of agreed and sort of disagreed across the board.
For the most part, the majority was I agreed with, and there were only a couple where I think maybe you disagreed, or like there was one example where it was potentially ambiguous. But the majority of my opinion was I agreed.
Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to throw in here that this is exactly what I was hoping to see. And the reason is everything I'm seeing here suggests that the petition should be granted. And we should be looking at everybody else who was reviewing those as well and correcting their behavior. What the goal, as I understand it here, is to bring everybody onto the same page and then enforce that playbook. And this looks like exactly what we're looking for. But he got a low score, not because he deviated from the average, but because the average was wrong. And so we should be doing something to encourage exactly this. If we have to have petitions and review them, perfect. But we should be looking at the average that he failed to meet when he's clearly in the right here. Just thoughts.
Go ahead, Vlad. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John. I just wanted to say one more thing is that these feedbacks are useful to analyze vCA work. And if I didn't have made any feedbacks, it would have been a huge work for me to prove every decision I made and to explain why here I chose this or that decision. And I think in some way asking for a minimum level of feedbacks from vCAs, maybe not make it mandatory, but asking for a minimum level of feedback from vCA is a good way to enable that the community check that there is a true and honest work by vCAs.
I think it's been said by a few people in the chat at least, but rewarding the behavior that you desire, I think is the correct way to go rather than punishing.
Yep.
So offering VCAs that bother to write a rationale for their review is probably, I think, a good way to look at this. So something to discuss as time goes on, I think, for next fund perhaps.
Thank you, Phil. Let's do Vlad and then maybe one more if there's anywhere else, because we tried for 15-20 minutes. So we're sort of in that arena right now. So let's see if we can do it. Vlad, your hand went down. Did you? Let's go to Naveed. And then if you want to come back, just put your hand up. Go ahead, Naveed.
Here. Oh, sorry. Well, I'll keep it short. I just wanted to support what John said. He steered this also in a good direction to focus on what's really happening. I went through all these issues that Gaetan raised. I was reading his rationale, and I have to say, I work the same way like he did. At least if the score doesn't match, if the score doesn't match the rationale, I would also be strict and filter it out. I think it's important that we do reward someone who reads in detail and doesn't skim over it. I think it's a good example. So in general, I think this is a good petition to have because it raises the quality issue to the forefront. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to echo that. I think that the most important piece we'll get out of this is not necessarily for the petitioners, but all of the VCAs can now take these particular examples and these deep dives that people have done, and look into their own work. I mean, I do that specifically on my own. I'm very harsh on myself as to what was I thinking. Why did I mark something as filtered out when everybody else marked it as excellent? And so that sort of deep dive is going to help all of us learn, and this kind of analysis. And we see the same names turning up again and again when you look through Gaetan's and even Tomi's, the same 7 or 8 people marking things as excellent, where they're going filtered out. So that we're now going down to that level of detail where it gets very specific and very specific people and very specific assessments and reviews, and you start to see those trends coming in. Just to Phil's point, I think rewarding good behavior, absolutely. What we do need to be careful of is we've still got this whack-a-mole point of we're still going to have people gaming the system, so we can't leave the gate open for somebody to do the just mark everything good or excellent and not provide a rationale because they don't have to. So I'm still for mandatory rationale, but I think to be debated.
I think if nothing else, this is showing me how much work some of the people here and the broader community put into this process. So yeah, it's very enlightening and humbling because I don't participate at that level in this way, in this area.
Thanks, Phil. Let's do Len, and then we'll go to vote.
Yeah, just as a general principle, I think the purpose is to try to identify bad actors of this review process. It's not to make a distinction between great actors and average actors or whatever. And I think it's pretty easy to tell people like the folks who we're talking to, they put a lot of effort in there. They're not bad actors. And so whatever system we're doing, I think we need to rethink it a little bit. The bad actors, okay, sophisticated gaming, that's fine, but not so many gamers are going to put that much effort into it. And let's say fine distinction of you rated it 5, but in your words you said you can't give it a 5. And that's careful analysis. So I think we going forward, we should think again about these rules in terms of what are we trying to do? We're trying to identify and eliminate or exclude bad actors, not to make judgments about great or good actors.
Excellent, good. Thanks, Len. Fantastic. Okay, so if going to vote, so voting yes here means that you agree and wish to overturn this filtering out reward slashing decision, and voting no means that you do not want to see that happen. Okay, off you go. Give you like 30 seconds here to get your stuff up. Okay. All right, 10 seconds. I should note if you are newer to the room and you want to join, thank you. Someone posted that in the comments. I can't remember who, but thank you for doing that. If you can vote if you joined and you can't find those under your reactions, same place you would raise your hand. That's under the reactions button. So a yes or a no there. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Scott, you got your countdown there. Okay, that looks overwhelmingly positive. So that is that outcome. Thank you. I think we did a better iteration there. Maybe better is a tough word, but we did a more succinct and focused one there. So thank you everyone for that and for your input. And Lorenz, you are like, you get the prize for most gracious of giving up your time spot repeatedly. So you are up, and we'll keep it going here. We'll try to accomplish the same thing and have us done here shortly.
Okay, yes, thank you. A brief note on the petition. I'm doing this as a CA to get a review removed from one of my assessments. One review on my assessment got my assessment filtered out, but after reviewing the aggregated file, I found that the review was not that it did not match my assessment. The vCA is Spencer, and he supports my case as well. I've seen him here already, so he could give some more details on it as well. He provided feedback on the filtered out, but it didn't match my assessment. He he did it more of an assessment of a normal challenge rather than a challenge setting from the Fund 9. So yeah, since I'm not really wanting to reveal my my assessor ID, I'm not going to give it oh, okay. My ID is already shared, it seems. But yeah, my petition is to get the review removed from my assessment so that I get the rewards for that assessment, because I have 1 excellent, 1 good, and 2 filtered out. I don't know if Spencer wants to add anything to this or not.
Yeah, sure, I can. So yeah, this was an honest mistake on my part. I think I must have either just been tired or misread it, and I missed the Fund 9 challenge setting. So I reviewed it like it was, as Gaetan said, or as Lorenz said, sorry. I reviewed it incorrectly. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot else that needs to be said. I already talked to Lorenz and we discussed, so like if you know, the results of this vote can't get those results or get those rewards back to him, I would give some of my rewards to him to compensate for that. But hopefully we can get that resolved. I think this process does raise the question of like these edge cases, right? So this was an unfortunate edge case where my incorrect mistake resulted in his review getting filtered out. And so I think it's good that we're kind of going through this process to make sure and to like, I guess, to be able to dispute these things. And so I'm glad that we were able to have this discussion.
And I think this goes to transparency of the system, the fact that this sort of thing can happen, that mistakes can be arisen and discussed and rectified.
Okay, so how should we progress here? What would you like the outcome to be to see happen?
I don't know if it's a possible outcome or not, but the question would be if the majority is agreeing to remove the review from my assessment, so I would potentially get the rewards for that assessment, if that's possible or not, because I don't know, because this is more for the vCA rewarding rather than the CA rewarding. But yeah, since it's a petition and it's a first trial, I thought I would give it a go and see if this works or not.
The review would be discarded for that vCA too. So they wouldn't be rewarded for it.
That's indeed something we need to look at as well.
Yeah, I would be okay if that one vCA review was discarded from my total.
I think we established that it may or may not happen depending on how IOG works their system, but I think the test case of the things like this can arise is a interesting case.
Good precedent we might be setting, or a bad one.
Yeah.
And as John said in the chat as well, due to the low numbers of vCAs we have and the reviews we had, I only had like 3 or 4 reviews on this assessment, which is quite low, which changes it up with just 1 review.
I think the system works best if there's significant participation, but we're still at the stage where that doesn't always happen across the system. So we need to keep increasing the numbers, and then the averages get better, right? More and more closer to the expected outcome, I guess.
Okay, so the vote would be more of a situational vote here. It would go to a question there as far as what could be done on the back end. So that's not something we can answer here, but the question would be more about, it would just be more about creating a case example that had a response to it. Is that sort of where what you're hoping?
Yeah, creating a case example and seeing if everyone agrees that the review should be removed or not, since it's an honest mistake from Spencer.
Okay.
And if this is possible or not, because we don't know.
Yeah, it won't change. Obviously, it won't change what the criteria that's actually in the app anyway. But I think it would set a precedent. That would be really what we would accomplish by doing that. And that was sort of the discussion around having you raise it, right? Initially. So
yeah, it was.
So I guess the framing would be that we would recognize that this was a mistake and should have been filtered, right? Should have been removed, and that we can use it as an example of future cases in the same scenarios of something that could be done in response.
Indeed, yes. But yeah, as John said as well, it should be a rarer case in later funds when we bump up the reviews from the vCAs, then it would become less and less frequent.
Okay. So Jeremy's saying voting yes basically forwards a request to IOG to see if rewards can be repaired before they go out to the CA level, at the CA level. Okay, that's a really interesting vote. Okay, so if you vote yes to this, then it will accomplish that we make that request to create future circumstances where that repair can happen prior to when something is really recognized like this, where there's a process that repair can be adjusted prior to the payout.
Yes, that's a good summary of it.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, you're already voting, so we'll go voting, and you have a minute here. Okay. All right, 10 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do it right now, Scott. Okay. That is a positive. All right, so what we'll do from here is take these results and work directly with those who petitioned to further the outcomes. And in the first case, in Matthias' case, we'll take this to actually be a working board issue and develop a group around it so that we can raise it as a challenge that needs direct resolution and fixing for Fund 9. So that's an outcome of this process. I know you guys are marathoners and we really went through a lot here. Is there any other comments that want to be made here? I know we've been going for a while, so I just want to make space for reflections on the process that maybe haven't been raised yet, or any suggestions or feedback, and maybe give a minute or two for that. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I really, really appreciate the work that is being put into. You know, I know this is hard. I know this is complicated, overwhelming. Everybody's trying their best. I know the process may seem quite unfair in certain instances, and it's the learning points like here that will essentially allow us to learn from them and account for them in the future, so we can adjust the system in a better way that actually takes into account all these different things. And I just wanted to say that, you know, it's seen, it's appreciated, and you have all my heads are down to the process that has been put in here. So just wanted to say that, like, you know, I appreciate you all for spending the time, and especially some of the petitions I've seen, the thought process that it was actually put into, and I think there is a lot of potential here to actually streamline things for the future reference as well. So just wanted to say that. I know it's hard. I'm here with you, and we're gonna make it better.
Thanks, Danny. It's very late for you as well, so it's very late for a lot of people on here. So thank you, everyone. John, and if you need to sign off, please feel free to do that. I don't feel like you need to say it again. Go ahead, John.
So I just want to say that I'm really liking how that this is turning out now that we've kind of hashed through the initial issues. But I would like to bring some focus and maybe some thought for the future on the average that everybody is being compared against here. You know, we're talking at most maybe 5 or 7 or 8 other reviews that you're falling out of line with. If we're finding that these petitioners are correct, what is that saying about the ones that they're compared against? And I think we should consider some way of looking at those more deeply in the future.
Great job.
Maybe there's even a minimum limit that needs to be added in there. Not that we're looking for solutions necessarily now, but yeah, that could be interesting. I'd like to thank everyone who's attended and voted and participated in this and watched on Twitter and wherever else things of people doing things. The petitions have been amazing. The process has been enlightening, and I think we can all learn and help develop it further. Obviously, Nadia, you're doing an amazing job hosting and organizing and communicating and doing all this sorts of stuff. I'd just like to say as well, Dan, we love your work. We love how you do things, but let's also keep in mind how we can keep this agency in the community and not have IOG come and adjust the process, but instead work how to keep passing the agency to us. So that would be my comment about this process. How can we keep developing our own processes and taking on more responsibility as a community? So thank you to everyone who's participated in this process.
Yeah, good. This is a great example of it, guys. You know, there's a lot of improvements here that we'll figure out. A lot of them are just the exploration, and a lot of things didn't work better. So that's part of the emerging of a new way. So and I think you all know that I just reinforce it here in support. Naveed, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think massive improvement from where we've come from last 2 funds. So Fund 6, Fund 7 was pretty much non-existent at this stage. This has been a good step forward, and for me, the feedback loop now goes back into not just the vCA process, but the CA process and the proposers, which is the most important bit, right? So that's where the value of this will come. That's for things we've talked about today that we can and have come in the chat that can feed directly back into the proposal process, which I think is the biggest value we get out of this.
Scott.
I just want to say I already made a post in the Discord channel. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to attach a file that I'm aware of in Zoom, unless it's in some other cloud storage, but the results have been posted in the Discord server and the link has been provided.
If you're not in the Discord server and you want to know more about these petitions or anything else, it's a great place to come. Good conversations. And so I will take it on me to follow up with each of the groups here and figure out next steps. So I will be the usher of that. So each of you, some of you aren't here anymore, but those of you who are will reach out to you and make sure that we get the next steps figured out. And that's it, I think we did it. V1 attempted. So appreciate everyone. We really appreciate all of you being here and your feedback. It's like hard to keep a room for this many hours with this many people, and I think it just reflects how much interest there is in making this better and recognizing what needs to happen and just contributing to it. So big thank you to everyone. And we will catch you next time. I'll put the recording on I'll put it on the Swarm channel and the YouTube channel as well, the CA YouTube channel. So that'll go up when the video drops. And we'll try to get a nice succinct sort of capturing of this meeting itself. So look forward to what comes as a result of what we planted here. Cool. Phil, I don't know how to do fireworks on there, but now I know how to do yeses and nos and fireworks. So I guess that means the meeting is over. So I'm going to stop the recording and that'll be it. Thanks, everyone.